Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Flying with Frankie G. My guest today is Captain Jody Hill. In full disclosure, Captain Jody Hill is a mentor pilot of mine. He's been a good friend for over a year, and I've learned a tremendous amount of things from Jody. Jody, thank you very much for being a mentor to me. Welcome to Flying with Frankie G. Why don't you tell the folks a little bit about how you started in aviation and basically where you are now?
I started in the 8th grade. I read a book called The Man Who Rode the Thunder. It was about a Marine fighter pilot, and it sounded cool. And from that day on, I wanted to be a pilot. I started taking flying lessons when I was 15. My mom used to sneak me down to the airport. My dad didn't want me to fly, but so my mom drove me to the airport. I started civilian. I've been civilian all my life. I was in the Army 68, 69, and 70, but I wasn't a pilot. I was a helo mechanic, crew chief. And I did the CFI, got my CFI, flight instructor. And I did that till you have to be 23 to get an airline transport rating. So when on my 23rd birthday, I got my first corporate job, flying a commander, aero commander. Got a 727 engineer rating and became a simulator instructor at United Airlines Training Center out in Denver. And my first type rating as a captain was September 73 at United in the 727. Still my favorite airplane. It's a good old airplane. I spent 15 years or so being corporate, and I got a lot of type. I got 12 type ratings in jets and everything. Lear, Citation, Gulfstream 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Challenger, Falcon 10, 2050, and a bunch of others. Then I went to American Airlines and was there 21 years. I flew a 4-engine jet, the BA-146 and the DC-10, and a 727, a 737, and I retired a little bit early at 58. I met a billionaire guy down in Miami that had a Boeing Boeing business jet. It's 737, but inside it's like a house. Wow. And so then for the last 13, I retired then, and I'm 71 now. So the last 13 years I've been flying BBJ and G4 and G5, G550 Gulfstreams.
Let's go right to the topic at hand. This COVID-19, it's wreaking havoc on the world. What is your opinion on how it is affecting the industry now at this moment?
Right now, it's affecting the entire world, the U.S. and the rest of the world. And my personal opinion, I hate to say this, but I think being in a passenger airliner, like an American Airlines or whatever, big airlines, it's probably one of the most dangerous places you can be right now. And I think most of the public is scared to death of it. I wouldn't want to be in an airliner going somewhere because of the COVID-19. But within a few months, we're going to have the vaccine. I believe the vaccine is going to be coming out. And I think it's going to be, we'll recover from it, but it's going to take some time. I think people, even like myself, they don't want to be crammed in with a bunch of other people in a little metal tube.
Sorry, how do you think it's going to affect private companies, Part 135s and 91s?
Part 91, I don't think it's going to, right now it's affecting them, but as soon as the virus quits spreading, when we reach a plateau and it gets better, even my corporate clients are not flying now. The Gulfstream guys and the Boeing guys, they don't want to go anywhere either. They don't want to go to where the virus is spreading. I think the corporate world will recover more quickly than 135, 121. I think 135 will probably recover more quickly because the people in 135, they're all in a little intimate group. They're not flying with strangers. Everyone is either by themselves or their family or their friends, so they socialize with them anyway. I think the last one to recover is going to be the airlines. Of course, they're going to have, at least in the U.S., we have a bigger advantage over the rest of the world because of our finances and our economy. I think the U.S. airlines will recover quicker than the other foreign airlines, but I think that'll probably take, I don't know, my guess probably a year or so, maybe before we get back to the same standard, the normal standard that we were 2 months ago.
Do you think that, I mean, as of now, when we fly on 121s, we have to go through TSA and all types of screening. Do you think that there's going to be any type of medical screening going forward after this type of a situation? Or do you think that people will be screened to see whether or not they're healthy to fly, as far as maybe an infectious disease like this?
That's a good question. I doubt it. You may see something. I don't think there'd be much testing other than, like, some of the foreign places are using thermometers. They have electronic thermometers. If
Yeah,
someone has a fever, they're not allowed to. I can see that happening. Beyond that, I don't see anything happening. And then, of course, once the vaccine is available, which would prevent the disease, then things are going to go back to normal.
I see. I
In
see.
my opinion, I'm not a doctor. I'm a pilot.
Um, how do you think this COVID-19 has affected the quote unquote pilot shortage that's out there that has hit the industry? Do you think? I mean, obviously, it's going to have some effect on it. What's your view on that?
Well, obviously, it's affected the pilot shortage because now we've traded the pilot shortage for a passenger shortage. So there are no passengers. Um, there are more pilots than there are passengers at this point, and that's going to change again. But once this virus thing this situation is cleared up, there's still going to be a huge. I see nothing but a bigger and bigger and bigger pilot shortage across the world, the United States and the rest of the world.
And do you think that we were starting to take a bite out of it prior to this?
Not really, no. There's been a pilot shortage. Um, I was in high school in 1966. United Air TWA hired zero-time pilots. They hired some zero-time, not 1 minute of flight time. They trained them all the way up, got them in the cockpit. It was fairly unsuccessful, but there was a big shortage. United was going around the country hiring pilots with 40 hours and a private license, and they'd loan you the money to get a commercial and give you a year to do it and everything. Then with the advent, and then 2 years later, you couldn't get a job no matter what because of all the Vietnam pilots that were being cranked out because of the Vietnam War. I got a type rating as a captain in 727 in September of '73, and I thought I had the world by the tail. Then the OPEC oil embargo came about, and I ended up flying a Satabria spotting swordfish out of San Diego
Wow.
because there were no pilots or there were no jobs for the amount of pilots. There's been a glut of pilots, been more pilots than jobs for ever since 1967, 68, until the last 5 or 6 or 7 years. And now the pendulum has finally swung the other way. So now there's a tremendous shortage of pilots. They're building more airplanes, more and more people are wanting to fly. So it's just going to be, and the military is not creating the pilots that they did back in the old days either. In the old days, you join the military, they teach you how to fly. After about 4 years as a pilot in the military, you get out, you go get a job with the airlines or corporate or something. Now it takes about 2 years to get into flight school. Once you graduate from flight school, which is a year later, you have a 12-year commitment. So you're looking at 15, 16 years, so you might as well do your 20 years and retire. And so the military is not getting the pilots they want either. In fact, because of that severe time requirement, it used to be you had to have a perfect 20/20 vision to get in to be a military pilot. Now they're taking guys wearing glasses and things. So the whole world has a pilot shortage, military and civilian.
For pilots that are getting into the industry now, what would you recommend? What path? We have three paths. We have the 121 world, we have the Part 135 world, and the 91 world. Where would you guide a new pilot?
I would say absolutely airline, the Part 121 world, for the two primary reasons. There are actually three primary reasons. I've done all three. I've done 135. I've done 121. I've done Part 91 corporate. Corporate is more fun, especially if you get up into the Gulfstream world and the BBJ world, and you're going around the world, and you get to go see cool places like Mount Everest and things like that. But the downside in the corporate world is, number one, the money is not going to be as good as the airlines. Generally speaking, rarely will you make as much in corporate as you will airlines now. Number two is the retirement for private and corporate world is not nearly what the airlines is going to be. So by the time you hit the age when you're going to quit, retire, 60, 65, whatever, you're not going to have the retirement that you would have with an airline. And thirdly is the schedule. With Part 91 and private flying, generally speaking, the biggest problem is having time off. Generally, you don't know when you have a day off until the day's over. You go, oh, well, I was off today. But you can't go somewhere and do something. So you don't have generally speaking, most Part 91 jobs, corporate jobs, you don't have days off in advance. You don't have what's called hard days off. Like, okay, I'm going to be off from the 3rd to the 12th, and I can go see my mom, my grandmother, my girlfriend, whatever. But you fly cooler airplanes, and it can be more fun. With the airlines, and probably the biggest reason is this. With the airlines, the very last thing they're going to ever get rid of is an airplane. If they don't have airplanes, they're not in business. So airlines will always either have airplanes or they'll not be in business. Corporate and private owners, on the other hand, that's the first thing to go. When they have experience any kind of financial difficulty, problems, economy, whatever, the first thing to go before the airplane are the pilots, because they, like General Motors and Ford, during that fiasco, they can fire the pilots immediately. It takes them a couple months or a few months to sell the airplanes, but they get rid of the airplane. So the airplane is, in those cases, is the first thing to go, whereas the airline is the last thing to go. So therefore, the security and stability with the airlines is vastly greater than private. Now, here's the advantage of being a pilot, and I worked with flight attendants all my life. I love them. They're great, wonderful people. The flight attendants are the ones that have the exposure to the COVID-19. In a cockpit, you're up in a cockpit, you've got your own oxygen, you got your own little atmosphere. So you're much more immune to being affected as a pilot than you are as a flight attendant who's walking up and down the aisle, dealing face to face, person to person with these people. So I don't think it's going to affect the pilot profession in the future. Probably not even the flight attendants either, because like I say, once the vaccine comes out, it becomes available, then that's going to eliminate the risk of it.
My last question to you, just to go back to the military aspect that you talked about and how difficult it is for the military to get, recruit, and train pilots and hold on to them. Do you think that the whole advent of drones has had an effect on the pilot shortage in the military?
No, not at all. The drone world is a completely different world. Now, it's not because of the pilot shortage, but it's going to be, I think the way the drones will affect it is there'll be less requirement for manned aircraft versus unmanned aircraft. So therefore, they're going to need less pilots because they're going to be doing it more via drones than unmanned aircraft. But there'll always be manned aircraft, military, civilian. That will always be.
Yeah, well, I've had the conversation with a couple of pilots on a few of my commercial trips as a passenger, sitting next to other pilots, and I had this one guy say to me that this is it for us. I mean, after us, there's probably going to be all automated, no pilot airplanes. I thought that was insane. What do you think about that? Do you think that's in our future?
No, absolutely not. And for example, I give you three examples of why that would be a horrible thing, a fallacy. The two 737 MAX crashes failed because of automation, because of systems. The computer thought, oh crap, we're going to stall, so I got to push the nose down, push them right into the ground. Now, the reason it did it because there wasn't a pilot there that knew how to fly and overcome the situation. So even though there's a pilot in the airplane, they didn't know what to do, or they knew what to do. Like in the case of Ethiopia, they turned the two stab trim switches off like they're supposed to, but then they turned them back on, and they went on, off several times until the airplane crashed. Also, the Air France Airbus that crashed in the Atlantic Ocean had a pitot heater failure. Simple electric heaters in the pitot, so now the airspeed is incorrect. The autopilot doesn't know what to do. They go, oh, we're going too slow, and so it's pulling the nose up, or it says we're going too fast. They pull the nose up, and the pilots didn't overcome it. So if you don't have pilots in the airplane, number one, they didn't fly the airplane. It's very simple. Like at American Airlines, and I've instructed aerobatics and airlines and all kinds of different scenarios and situations. And in a typical jet, if you hold the nose, it's called pitch and power. Hold the nose 22.5 degrees nose up, 80 to 90% N1 RPM on the engines, you're going to fly, no matter what the airspeed indicator says. You turn off the automation. When I was flying the green or the Gulfstream and the Boeing 737 and stuff, we had a saying, things go wrong, you just go click, click. It's just a frickin' airplane. And you turn off auto throttles, autopilot, and now you fly.
Fly by hand.
They didn't do that at Air France, and they didn't do that with the two 737 MAX crashes and a lot of other crashes. So a checklist, there's sometimes you don't have time for a checklist. Some things you don't need a checklist for. If you need a checklist to tell you to push the nose down when you're stalling, you're dead anyway. I mean, and that has to be like you're walking under a branch of a tree. If you don't duck, you're going to whack your head.
Great.
If you don't have common sense to duck.
It's just common sense. Well,
Right.
Jody, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I hope we can have you back again to discuss some other topics in aviation. Thanks again.
All right, Frank. Thank you. Good luck, man.
Take care.
All right.
I'd like to thank you for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button below, and please subscribe to my channel. Right now there's only one video, but I plan on bringing you tons of content on aviation and on changing careers midlife like I did. Once again, thank you very much. Please hit the like button below and subscribe to my channel. Have a great day.